I guess my first question, and I'll start with Ed and we'll sweep down. Ed, tell the group a bit about what you do and how you try to lead and guide innovation in your enterprise of bank.
Well, you would think that banking and innovation don't go together, but 25 years ago, we started Wintrust at a card table with a very small, simple idea to all the big banks. Illinois was the last to change their banking laws. When they did, they allowed all the big banks to buy all the great little community banks. And our studies then showed that 50% of the people still wanted that good community delivery. If you think back 25 years ago, it was all paper. We had 14 pocket-proof machines. Everything was paper. And if you look at the innovation that's taken place through that period of time, if you look at debit cards, you look at, ATMs weren't as prevalent as they are. You look at online banking, you look at person-to-person payment, the whole payment system has changed, paper is out. We had to grow in that environment and at the same time, build a business at the same time. So it was really, we had to continue to innovate. The neat thing about banking is that the big banks and now fintech and the like will come along with new products. They end up selling the same product to us. So technology and innovation has been the great equalizer. But so what you have to do is empower your people as times have moved. I still carry dad cash in my pocket. I don't even have a debit card. So you've got to empower the people you're working with to tell you, hey, you are way off base. We got to get this stuff done. So you need to continue to invest in the business. You need to listen to people. You need to listen to your customers, especially when you consider that banking is pretty much a commoditized business. If you can't differentiate yourself in a commoditized business and stay ahead of the game, you're not going to be able to compete. We've differentiated ourselves with good old-fashioned personal service, but like we say, we have same or better products, same or better delivery systems, and we kill people with service. That's what's worked for us, but we've had to evolve as we've grown, as any startup company would grow, and continue to evolve and not get set in our ways, continue to listen to the folks and be competitive.
Sure. Good stuff. I'm going to come back to you about how your board reacts when they need returns and you still want to be innovative, but let me hold on that. Hardy, obviously some financial constraints in Illinois, not an easy job that you have. Tell us what you do and tell us, how do you try to lead innovation?
Well, I think when you're in Springfield and when you have a year without budget for 364 days out of 365, it forces you to innovate and it forces you to come up with new ways to getting things done. When you are $3.6 billion in deficit, again, it forces you to innovate, and especially in our case, when you have a greenfield like the Department of Innovation and Technology, newly created, an absence of the mindset of enterprise thinking, only presence of the siloed thinking, it really gives you a tremendous greenfield advantage of introducing innovation. And we've been able to successfully do that in the last 18 months. And add to that, I know you're going to ask him about the board, but I've got a governor who actually comes from the business background, and he comes in into the first CIO council meeting that I hosted, and the first words that he says is, you are the technology leaders, and I want you to take risk. And if you fail, I have your back. And this is unheard of in a government when an elected official comes in and says, as a technology leader, it's okay to fail. And that kind of empowers the entire technology leadership and everybody in technology in the state government. And we have seen tremendous results of those in the last 15 months, which I'll go in detail later.
All right, so just some messages that you can take away from that, right? So when you have necessity and challenge can spur innovation. Having a boss, a board, a CEO, a colleague who wants you to take risk, and having some willingness, some safety net that it's okay to potentially fail. All good tips. Brenna, you're trying to do some pretty amazing things. Tell us some of what you're up to and tell us about innovation in the city.
So I think for a lot of the same reasons that Hardik's been forced to innovate, right? Not a lot of money, a lot of challenges, and a lot of opportunity with strong leadership, both in the departments and from the mayor. And we've actually taken a different track in Chicago than a lot of other cities, right? You've seen a lot of cities across the US, and you see this in some private sector companies, name a chief innovation officer. And we have actually, and we get asked, well, who is the chief innovation officer? We don't have one, and we don't have one on purpose. Because if you name a chief innovation officer, that means there's one person responsible for innovating across your entire organization, and it creates an us and a them. And our perspective on innovation is, in my department, I have 120 people who should be responsible for innovating and who we think are creative enough and committed enough to their jobs to be innovative and come up with those great ideas, right? The city has 32,000 employees who should be thinking about innovation and ways to be more innovative and creative and efficient and effective in their jobs. And beyond that, the city of Chicago has nearly 3 million people who should be thinking about how we can be more innovative and creative in how we serve the city and how they serve the city and how we meet their needs. So why limit that to one person as opposed to 3 million?
All right, so you're talking about some kind of community engagement and some type
Right.
of workforce engagement, might be tips. We've got to get the users motivated
Right.
to help us innovate.
Well, not just motivated, but then you also have to think about the sustainable processes to harness that innovation and learn how to realize it.
Good stuff.
That's the challenge.
Morris, this is great. I've got questions coming. Shradha, what about you? I mean, you are by nature an innovative company, but as you move from 300 employees to 400 employees and soon 1,000 employees, how are you going to, what do you do first, tell us, and then how are you going to maintain that innovative edge of a startup?
What a great question, and something I think about often, because especially as we scale so rapidly, it's so easy to be short-sighted about the goals for this year or for next year and not really build an organization's DNA for the next few decades to come. And innovation is such an important muscle to train and develop in any organization, because at the end of the day, it's grow or die. And I want growth. And it's really important for us to really start that process of creating the culture of innovation and the kind of almost 2 or 3 steps that have to precede a culture of innovation. It's really a culture of curiosity. And we start that in the interview process. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, what's a missed opportunity about ContextMedia that you would want to come and fix? And it sets the expectation that we are comfortable with being questioned and challenged on the way we do things, and also expect every new hire to come in with new ideas and take ownership over implementing those ideas.
And help me again, so I just want to make sure the audience heard that tip. So when you're hiring people, what is it that you ask them? You ask them,
what's a missed opportunity for us, or something that we're doing poorly that you can come help us fix?
and is that, do you do that before you make a decision to hire?
We do.
Is that great? Okay, so, you know, make sure that you're empowering people even before they come on board. Wow, this is good stuff. I like this. So let me go to Mary Ellen. So Mary Ellen, talk to me, I mean, what could be more innovative in my lifetime than NASA? Talk to us about NASA and innovation and your role there, but also tell us about what you're doing now to help risk-based, complex organizations, you know, take things on.
Well, when I was at NASA, I had become involved. I had come to know the head of NASA, Dan Golden, at the time. And he had a brand new initiative in which he wanted to get funding from private sector into research and help offload the operational costs of the space station at the time, and hopefully so we could start looking at Mars and beyond. And it's interesting, so this was in 1997, and for the first time NASA was allowed to keep its royalty revenue. There was a Space Act agreement. And so Dan brought me in to lead this effort, and that's actually how I came to know Tom Kuzmarski so many years ago. And so I certainly became involved in the innovation at NASA in that way. But also, when I think back on my days at NASA, it was an incredibly demanding and innovative time. It was a time that demanded innovation. We were embarking on constructing the most challenging engineering project ever, constructing this International Space Station. And most people just simply don't understand the engineering feat and the operational feat that was involved in that. And so I came on board at NASA in 1992. I flew my first flight in 1995. We still didn't have hardware, even though the space station had been in development for a number of years, for political reasons. In 1993, I believe it was, NASA had a complete space station plan, Space Station Freedom, on the books, ready to go, ready to produce hardware, and for political and foreign policy reasons, we scrapped the entire thing in favor of creating an international space station, working with the Russians and trying to integrate not only their hardware but their philosophy. And this is where I was at NASA at that time. And so when I was assigned for my second flight, it was the third construction flight for this space station. So keep in mind there were 2 modules that were up there. A crew had visited these 2 modules 1 year prior, and our crew was slated to go up and integrate new modules on this vehicle. Nobody had been there for over a year. It was, I mean, it was like out of a science fiction movie. But if you want to talk about innovation and how agile everybody at NASA had to be, from the mission planners to the crews, every single element at NASA had to be innovative. That module was delayed. It was delayed. It was coming out of Russia, and it was delayed. It was delayed, and the batteries were failing. And here we are. Our crew is training. We have Russians as part of our crew. We're integrating and innovating all the time. And 2 months before our mission, they decided we could not wait for this module anymore. And NASA had to do an extraordinary innovative pivot. A crew at this point had always trained for over a year to go on a shuttle mission. And a complex mission like this, keep in mind just how it requires even more training. 2 months before that mission, they added another flight, split our crew, changed the entire mission operations and planning. And it was an incredible honor to be a part of that mission, to see everybody around me innovating, looking for new ways to make this happen.